So today we're talking alchemy and we're talking transmutation. So, what does that mean? Okay, we have the main, uh, alchemy wheel behind us. We also have the table of elements behind us because this has been the true war through for a very long time. The war between alchemy, chemistry. Okay, most people don't know this. You all have been told that alchemy doesn't work. But most of the famous what we see chemistry is not that old. Chemistry only got big in the late 1700s and a lot in the 1800s, in the early 1800s. And most of the big people that started chemistry they was all alchemists. And we're going to be talking about the two and what is transmutation all about, and this fascination people have about turning lead into gold and the whole 9 yards. We'll be talking all of that. But at first, we got to go back to the beginning. We're going to talk about something called cloud theory. Okay. Cloud theory is this. Okay. Our favorite conversation is the weather. But most people don't know there is no weather. The weather is nothing but our favorite conversation about water molecules in the atmosphere. And when there's very little water molecules in the atmosphere, we call it a clear day. When there's a medium amount, we call it a cloudy day. I mean, a partially cloudy. When it's a lot, it's a very cloudy day. We can't see that. We can't see. It's too much water vapor in the air. When the water vapors start to condense in the sky, we call those clouds. And we have over 20 names for different types of clouds. But all of the clouds are just different formations of water vapor. Some are higher, some are lower, some are dense, some are strung out. It's all water vapor. When that water vapor starts to condense in the air, we have different names. We call it fog. We call it rain. We call it drizzle. We call it, if it's if it's cold at the time, we call it ice. We have all these different names. And then when that water vapor falls from the sky, we can call it snow. We can call it ice. Okay. If the water vapor is being driven by wind, we can call it a tornado, a storm. Okay. If the water pressure, if the water molecules is the water vapor, water molecules, same thing, is over water and there's a very low pressure system there, we can call that a tropical storm, a hurricane. We got all these hundreds of different names all over the world just to describe water vapor in the air. But it's all water vapor. It's one thing which is being described 100 different ways. It's not different. There's no difference between snow and ice. There's no difference between a sunny day and a rainy day. There's no difference. Okay. When water vapors start to collect, we call that flooding. Okay. When water vapors start to collect in one pool, we call that a lake. Okay. It's just water vapor. And if you could come up with a machine that could control water vapor in the world, you would have something called a weather dominator. I think there was a cartoon that talked about a weather dominator in the future. You just have to control the water vapor. Okay. This is what alchemy, the simple answer for what alchemy and transmutation is all about. They do not believe in this chemical table which is behind us, that there's all these different elements and all these elements are unique and distinct. Just like all those different types of clouds in the air is not unique and distinct. It's just different forms of water vapor. Okay. And the reason why Since nobody could come up with the explanation of why the planets are all different since they're made, since we all came from the sun, all the planets in our solar system. And most people think there's only 8 or 9 or 10 planets or 20 planets. Most people don't know our solar system is made up of over 100 planetary bodies, ranging from a mile up to Saturn size. 100. Okay. But we only talk about the big giant ones. But all of those and the millions of ice bodies, which is in the Oort cloud, there's millions of those. We call those when they come in comets and meteors and that. See, we just have all of these names for describing cake batter that was made when our sun was forming and split out all this excess matter when our sun was forming. And the reason why our sun was able to produce all these different elements that make all the planets different. And the reason, even though the earth was made out of one big splatter from our sun, how come the earth is not uniform and we have different metals all over the earth? The reason is because our sun takes, this is what transmutation is. This is how God works. He takes a single element and he transmutes it into hundreds or thousands of different ways. What does that mean then? We are carbon atoms. That is all our bodies are made of. We are living carbon atoms. But coal is carbon. Diamond is carbon. There's thousands of different forms of carbon. He just took one element and just stretched it out. And by mixing it up, just like my favorite example, everyone loves to eat chicken. And if you go around the world, there's hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of recipes on how to cook a chicken. It's not that there's hundreds or thousand different chickens in the world. It's the same damn chicken. We just all cook it a little bit different. There is no stable table of elements. Everything changes. How the earth was able to come up with all these different minerals that's located in the earth, because when the earth was cooling, all the heavy stuff went to the center. The light stuff stayed out on the end because the earth is spinning, just like your clothes in your dryer. And that heat inside the earth is like a giant cooker. And then when we have volcanoes and whatever, it spits out different things. That's the reason to get to the metals, you have to dig into the ground. And by digging in the ground in different places, you get different metals. Because the earth, just like our sun, as they tell you, is only made up of hydrogen and helium. But our sun is a super massive pressure cooker. And our sun, when it has corona mass ejections and all this stuff, it spits out a lot of heavier atoms that are not hydrogen and helium, because the pressure inside the sun is able to do that. And that's the reason they say, which everybody who watched the show Nova, I grew up watching Nova, that we are made up of exploding stars because the heaviest of the elements are trapped inside the sun. They cannot be released until our sun goes supernova or explode or maybe have a polar shift or two. You get what I'm saying, don't you? That is when you get the super heavy elements released. But all of those heavy elements was made up from the light elements.